Hello fans and friends, welcome to another video. My name's Keir Smith and today I want to talk about the singles chart battle between Oasis and Blur from 1995. Both bands released singles on the same day in a bid to win the #1 spot on the UK singles chart. Oasis with Roll With It versus Blur's Country House. The results were announced on the 20th of August 1995, 26 years ago today. So the story begins. In April 1994, Blur released their third album, Parklife, to great critical and commercial success. They had big hit singles with Girls and Boys, End of a Century and Parklife. The album proved to be so popular that it stayed on the UK album charts for over 18 months. And then in August, Oasis released their debut album, Definitely Maybe. Big hit singles from this album too, with Shaker Maker, Live Forever and Cigarettes and Alcohol. At the time, Definitely Maybe went on to become the fastest selling debut album by a UK band of all time. And that led us to the Brit Awards that was held on the 20th of February 1995. The Brit Awards is an awards ceremony celebrating British music. Blur won Best Group, they won Best Album for Parklife, they won Best Single for the title track, all of which Oasis were considered for. Blur also won Best Video for Parklife. And Oasis did win one award. They won the British Breakthrough Act, but Blur was certainly on top. And then in April 1995, Oasis scored a #1 hit with the single Some Might Say, and a big party was thrown for the band to celebrate. And Damon Albarn went to this party just to congratulate the band and say well done. But at the party, Liam Gallagher got right up in Damon Albarn's face and said, "Fucking #1, fucking #1." Typical Liam Gallagher. But Damon Albarn went away thinking, okay, #1, yeah, okay, we'll see. Both bands were due to release their albums later in 1995. Blur's The Great Escape was due first in September, and Oasis' What's the Story Morning Glory was due in October. So no problem there. But the lead-off singles for the album, Oasis Roll With It, was due first on August the 14th, and that was to be followed by Blur's Country House on August the 21st. But having been fired up by Liam Gallagher's comments, Damon Albarn's competitive streak got the better of him, and he went to the record company and asked that the date for the Country House single be moved in line with Oasis Roll With It, so that both singles would be released on August the 14th, 1995, and that meant we had a chart battle on our hands. And so the two biggest bands in Britain went head to head, Blur versus Oasis. But it was much more than just the music that was dividing these two bands. The British class system came into it. It was Oasis from Manchester, the north, versus Blur from London, the south. The no-nonsense northerners, the working class, versus the educated southern hipsters. The event gathered mainstream media from the newspapers, tabloids, TV and every music magazine from Melody Maker to The NME. The whole thing was built up into quite a frenzy. It was dubbed the Battle of Britpop, the biggest battle of the band since the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. As people chose their respective corners for the upcoming battle, various pros and cons were labelled against each band. Oasis were dubbed as plagiarists who lent heavily on the work of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones and The Who. But no doubt they were creating their own exciting, brash and leery brand of rock and roll. Blur would plunder the past too, citing the Kinks, the Specials and the Smiths as big influences on them, but they delivered their music with an irony and cleverness and a knowing wink. It was considered that Oasis were more real. Blur were probably the better musicians, but they didn't reach your heart. I was firmly in the Oasis corner at the time. I was 14 and a half when the chart battle commenced, and it was all very exciting. I was a big Oasis fan already. Me and my brothers had played Definitely Maybe to death. We'd loved the follow-up singles, Whatever and Some Might Say, and all of the B-sides that came along. So yeah, it was roll with it all the way. There were some really amusing things being said between the two bands through the media. Liam Gallagher said that Blur sounded like Chaz and Dave chimney sweep music, and Damon Albarn said that Oasis sounded a little bit like Status Quo, and so the media dubbed Oasis Quoasis or Oasis Quo. So after all of the media hype, what about the two songs? What about the music? Well, for me, I think that Country House was a superb single. I thought it was really catchy, very singable, big chorus. I like the umpire horns. I like Graham Coxon's guitar playing. I think the middle eight where the harmonies come in is absolutely superb, and I loved Country House. In fact, it was the single that got me into Blur. As for Oasis with Roll With It, I really enjoyed it at the time. I thought it was a great song, but looking back now, it's one of the lesser songs on Morning Glory. It's Oasis by numbers for me. Decent rock and roll tune, decent guitar solo. I always enjoy Noel Gallagher's backing vocals, but yeah, a pretty uninspired choice of a single, and I think that Country House was the better of the two. It's just much more interesting for me. The results were in on Sunday, August the 20th, 1995, 26 years ago today, and Blur had won. 274,000 copies of Country House were shifted in comparison to 216,000 for Oasis Roll With It. Blur were number one. Not to take anything away from Blur's victory, but there is one thing that should be considered when we're looking at this chart battle, and that is that when Blur released Country House, they released 2 CD singles. You got the regular CD single, and then you also had the opportunity to buy this, a live recording from Blur's Mile End show in 1995. 4 tracks, Country House being one of them. Now, the fact that Blur released 2 CD singles, and you could buy both, did that tip the scales in Blur's favour? Either way, Blur were victorious, and there was an infamous gathering on the Sunday to celebrate the fact that Country House was indeed the UK #1 single. But the party was a little bit of a damp squib. Dave Rowntree, Blur's drummer, didn't show up at all. Alex James, the bass player, turned up late, and Graham Coxon really wasn't in a good place at the time, and he didn't see what all the fuss was about and just wanted to get away from the party. In an interview the following month, Blur's Graham Coxon said, "I would have liked to have had a #1 quietly, but there's probably no such thing as that. I wanted our band to be #1 just because #1 is a special thing, but it has become not special. I wish the races had been staggered, because then Oasis would have got to #1 as well. We don't need this fake war, this preposterous chart war." When the albums came out, both went straight in at #1 as you'd expect, but Blur's The Great Escape has since paled in the shadow of its predecessor Parklife, whereas Oasis, What's the Story Morning Glory, went on to sell millions of copies and has become the UK's 4th biggest selling album of all time. But back to the singles, Roll With It and Country House. Noel Gallagher of Oasis said that both singles were shit. Alex James of Blur said that Blur won the battle, Oasis won the war, but Blur went on to win the whole campaign, which is interesting. So there you have it. That was the battle of Britpop. That was Blur versus Oasis, Country House versus Roll With It. As I say, I prefer Country House of the 2 singles, but please let me know what you think. What do you think of the 2 singles? What did you think of the albums? Please leave your comments below. Please give the video the thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Please subscribe to the channel. There'll be lots more to come. Thanks as always for watching. See you next time.